And we can send messages to each other in the right hand.
And we're live.
And we're live. How exciting! It's another business of software, Google Hangout. Welcome to Mark Littlewood. It's summer here in Cambridge, England, so we're all celebrating with our lovely summery shirts. Today we're connected across to that other Cambridge, or Boston at least, and East Coast, and we're welcoming Chris Savage from Wistia. Hi, Chris.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thanks for taking some time out and coming on. How's the weather like over there? Is it sort of springing yet? Or
in this Cambridge, it's great actually. We got like 9 feet of snow this year, which was horrible. But now it's like about 65 degrees out, sunny. Probably get up to 70 today, which is quite nice. I don't know what that is for in Celsius. I have no idea. 100, right. 200?
Absolute. Yep. 400 and
403.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, great.
But it's sunny, and definitely I think that the kind of sense over here is spring has sprung, and we're going to get 3 days of summer, and then winter will set in for the rest of the year. But
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, we get to enjoy it. So, Chris, how things been? You just to kind of set the scene. You've been a BoS attendee for a number of years, and was really excited about the talk you were going to give last year, and did. It was great. I think learning from other people's mistakes is always entertaining, even if you don't learn stuff. I'm not saying people shouldn't take something away from it, but the kind of double whammy of both is good. So catch us up with Wistia and tell us about what Wistia does and what you've been doing.
Yeah, let's see. So obviously the highlight of last year was speaking at BoS and just connecting with so many people. So you got to do that first.
I hope your new wife isn't watching, by the way.
You hope she's not right now?
Yeah, I was going to cede the second most important moment.
Well, that goes without saying. Obviously, getting married last year was a huge deal. So basically what does Wistia do? We try to help marketers use video better on the web, so give you total control over the videos on your website, let you customize the playback, like add interactivity, capture email addresses, all the things you'd want to do as a marketer, and then give you insights into how people are watching your videos. So analytics show what people skip, what they rewatch, so that you can hopefully make better videos and get more out of your videos. Wistia is today 37 people, based all here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I started the company 8.5 years ago with one co-founder. And I would say the big thing that's happening right now is that, just from a people perspective, last year we grew from 20 people to 30, about net 10 people. And already we're at 37, which is almost as many people as we added the whole last year. And this year is looking to be a big year. I mean, we're planning to try to get to about 60 people this year. So a lot of growth, a lot of people, trying to keep the culture really strong as we scale, and trying to go from a world, I think, of where we used to have, and I certainly pushed for a lot of chaos to create a really creative place, is now actually interesting, because to continue to be creative, we have to create more process as a larger company to have room for chaos, which has been interesting. It's a hard transition, but so far so good.
Someone that used to work with me until quite recently said the aim of everyone else's activity in the company was to make it mark-proof, which I think there's definitely something in that kind of creativity and understanding where to then sort of step back and get people to really understand and have kind of clarity on what they're doing, and it's an interesting time. Has that changed the way that the kind of core crew has behaved? Has it been hard for them to start to kind of give up domain expertise or roles, or how does it sort of work? How does that dynamic work?
Yeah, I think it's It is hard. You know, for a long time, it was just like, okay, everybody cares deeply about the company and feels a duty that if anything comes up, they should do it. And now I think the hard thing is like, you might be able to do this, and you might be able to do a pretty good job at it, at something, but there's probably something else you can do that's far more important, that if you could focus on that and your role was really clearly defined, you could own that, and then we should have that second thing that you love doing, but it was probably not the best use of your time, go to somebody else. So it is hard. I think that it's just a lot of conversation, and it's a lot of like really trying to define what people own. And I think it is also hard too to go from a world of like, you know, if anything crazy came into our office in the past, we'd try to figure out what kind of content could we make about that crazy thing. And an example of this is like, we had like these fake pigeons that ended up in the office because I went to some weird dinner where someone had these fake pigeons, and then they end up in videos, and there's like context for them, and it's like we kind of like had creative solutions to things based on what we had, and then someone on the team 6 months ago bought this like vintage 1970s Mercedes like station wagon. And it seems like something that we probably, in like old Wistia, we would have been like, okay, how do we make content? Like you go back in time and, you know, you can imagine all the stuff. But now there's so much stuff going on that can fuel some of our creativity, but we actually have to say like, okay, no, like there's so many different things we're trying to do. If we're going to have, you know, a new ad that's coming out or a piece of content or something, we're going to approach that creative process really deliberately and say like, we're going to, whatever, yeah, maybe the station wagon comes into it, but it's not the driving force. It has to be like a goal that's the driving force. And, you know, it's interesting. I mean, that stuff does change a lot.
Do you think that means that you wasted a lot of time in the early days when you were doing those things? Was that kind of a release, the kind of release that the people needed from the kind of reality of startup, or?
Yes, but I wouldn't say, I think like traditionally someone would look at that and say like you wasted a bunch of time. I think that actually like one thing we have been good at is like trying things and failing and learning from them. And so I think that it wasn't actually a waste. And I think that still now I think to myself like, how can we make sure that we have enough space to still, you know, waste time? Still, like everything that we make shouldn't go out the door, right? Like that's anything you learn once you really start building a brand, is like you're going to try a lot of stuff, and it has to be okay for you not to launch things. And there's incredible things that we've done that we've never launched that no one's ever seen. They just didn't fit for some reason, and I think that's a good thing.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So what are the sort of big sort of challenges, I guess? What are the things you're looking out for? Well, I was going to say big rocks, but that means something completely different in your organisation. That's just something to drop gratuitously from JCB.
I would say some of the big challenges are, while we have gotten pretty good at onboarding people, it's harder and harder to help people. Like we want people to be able to grow and learn in any role that they're in. But as you hire faster, you end up bringing on more people who have less experience and less context for the business. And that's a really good thing because we've got tons of amazing people joining us. But you can't rely on, like our reliance in the past was kind of like, okay, just be really aggressive, be really hungry, and figure it out, which is we're still telling people to do. But if this is your second job and you've only worked in one other company for a year and a half and you end up at Wistia, you don't know how to learn all that stuff yourself necessarily yet. You don't know when to ask for help. You don't know what that infrastructure is. So we've been thinking a lot about like how can we make sure that we actually create more process around learning and around growth for a lot of people, especially people who are earlier in their careers. I think that's a big challenge, and I think that figuring out who owns communication is another big challenge as we grow. You know, it used to be, we have an idea, we're going to change the pricing, grab the whole company, which was 7 people, 8 people, and just talk about it. And we could still do that sometimes when we're 15 people. It's pretty hard to do that right now. It's pretty hard to...
And it's actually the value of that reduces at a point when you've got too many voices anyway, surely. So
it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder when you have 37 people to just have an open conversation and select and make a decision, which is actually why I've been thinking about like, okay, with an organization of this size, you could have a brainstorming session with 35 people, and you could
Yeah.
say, everybody come up with your craziest ideas, and if you care about some topic, come in here and we'll do it. But then you have to be more clear about like how the selection process works, who are the people who are going to be selecting that thing, and then how is the implementation going to work. And I think that actually separating those pieces is really important.
Cool. So when you started this, I mean, you started out, you were going to do this startup and be rich in 6 months and move to the nice bit of Cambridge, which is a very long way away, and I'm not sure we'd let you in. But
yeah, right across the ocean, yeah.
And then something happened, and business got in the way, and you know, you've really evolved as a sort of an entrepreneur over a number of years. Is it more exciting now than it was at the beginning, or?
It's different kinds of excitement. You know, I think at the beginning there was like the huge rush of getting one deal was unbelievable. And I remember vividly the first 20 deals, like how it felt to get those customers to sign on.
Yeah.
Now I'm less worried about like the next 20 deals. And I'm more worried about like a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like how we're going to scale the organization and keep the culture really strong. I think actually strengthen the culture as we grow is like, it's something that is just harder. So I think the challenges now sometimes feel scarier because there's way more people who are like involved. And if I wanted to go talk to every individual about a decision, like I really can't anymore. Which up until even beginning of last year, like I still could. But I think that the other thing that's different is which is really exciting is like there's a lot we're figuring out some of this stuff. And as it's being figured out, we're doing things so much faster than we were able to do them before, and I think at a higher level of quality. And that's really exciting. Like actually just late last night, we pushed a new version of all of the learning materials on our website. And it's something that doesn't seem like a big deal, but actually I think if you go and look at it, it's like pretty clever what's happened, because if you're logged in as a Wistia company, you come back to the marketing site, it's not just trying to pitch you on the product because you already are using the product. It's got tons of interesting, useful content, and we have this vibrant community. And like that was something that like I don't think 2 years ago we could have considered building the thing that we built to solve this problem. But now we have this like kind of amazing, really fast, really beautiful thing that, you know, a bunch of people worked on and built together, but that was still like a small part of the organization that did that. So I think that's cool. Is there's just so much stuff happening at the same time, as it makes it very exciting.
Excellent. Have you ever thought, it's getting really big and I need to bring in that business CEO? Not really.
You know, I think it's a good thing to, I think never say never, right? Like, I think it's always good to like think about how we could make the business stronger and think about what we want to do as we grow. You know, my co-founder Brendan and I will talk about just like why we're doing this in the first place. You know, like what's the point of doing this? Because if it's just about money, like, you know, we can sell this company, I can make a bunch of money. Like that's like it's not about that, and it's actually interesting to articulate that it's not about that. That it's like it's about creating a company that creates experiences, and it's like creating amazing experiences for customers, and creating amazing experiences for a team, and so when we think about like getting help, we try it. I mean, we have advisors who we go to and consultants that we found, and so far we've been able to build a place where everyone can still just grow into their roles. I don't know if that will be true forever, but for now, that's kind of the way that we've solved the problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not suggesting for a minute, by the way, that I've been approached for the role or anything by your. I mean, it's one of those things. Inevitably, as you kind of grow up. I mean, I think if you look at companies like Redgate, where we are, and to an extent, companies like Balsamic, although Peldy's, you know, pretty relentlessly determined not to grow if he can possibly help it. And the more determined he grow, the bigger he gets. You know, there's that sort of independent streak, and it's a very BoS thing. You know, I mean, I think it's seeing those kind of companies and organisations grow over time. You know, they really, if you can scale your values, and scale your culture, then you're halfway to the win anyway.
Totally.
As long as you don't have outside shareholders that can kind of push you into doing things and go in directions you don't want to do. It must be great to feel that you've got control of your destiny.
I mean, that's what it feels like, and I think that the big thing is just trying to build a company that I love working at. You know, like, I feel like I've heard from enough people that they sacrificed that, and then they spend their lives trying to get it back. You know, and like, I think that I feel very, very, very lucky that we actually have been able to grow slower sometimes and say, like, you know, it's not about growing slowly. We're trying to grow really quickly, but sometimes you move a little bit slower on certain things where I think if we had, like, if the majority of the company was owned by, you know, other people, by, you know, outside investors, I think it would just be a lot harder to convince everyone of that.
Yeah.
Not impossible, but harder.
So what's happening in the, sort of switch track a little bit, what's happening in your world, the world of video marketing, advertising? What are the sort of things that we should know about as a community, and what should we be thinking about? What should we be aware of?
Yeah, I think the big thing that's happening is that you know, over the last 10 years, there's been a huge shift in the control that small businesses have over their brands. So, you know, it used to be that if you wanted to make videos and communicate a really emotional message with the world, the way to really do that was TV. And the way to do that was have, like, an ad agency that specializes in this, create the content for you or help you figure it out, right? And that's basically all we saw was that stuff.
Yeah.
And now that control has been put into the hands of much smaller companies with much more control. And the people who are making the content are sometimes video production companies that are outside your business, but also that there's more frequently there's people who are being hired full time. This is something that we see all the time. I think it's very similar to design, where for a long time you'd use design consultancies to help you, and then eventually it's like, actually, you know, one designer can do so much. Why don't we have a designer who helps us with most of our stuff, and if we need extra help, we'll, like, go out to an agency. So that's what we're seeing, is that just more and more and more videos going in-house. More people are adopting it, and you have more control over your brand, for good and for bad, right? So what's showing up, I think, is, like, you know, from a tools perspective, there's way more tools. There's like companies like us that are more focused on helping you with the videos and your on-site experience. There's obviously YouTube, which is great for search and social. There is now more live video stuff that's coming out, and I'm not surprised by it. Like, I think Periscope and Meerkat, if you've seen those things.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they make a lot of sense because it's kind of an extension almost of what, like, Snapchat is. You know, like, Snapchat has become this thing that it's close to showing people what you're actually doing at that time, and with a little bit more editing. And Periscope is just saying, like, no, I guarantee you this is what I'm actually doing. I think all of this is just important because you can't outsource the Periscoping. Like, you can't outsource a lot of this stuff. Like, you have to figure out how to be comfortable and embrace it yourself as a business. And I think I think we're going to see totally different types of content from people over the next 5 years because of it.
In a good way or a bad way?
I think a good way. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, for us, right? Like, our mission at Wistia is we're just trying to help businesses be more human. And I think video is, like, a really great way to do that. And for a long time, like, the internet basically took out it took away the ability to connect with someone that you have a transaction with. You know, like, right? Like, so in the past, every business transaction ever, if you were in the Agora, you know, in the Greek market, like, negotiating for rice and beans, that you're, like, talking to somebody. If you were buying something through a catalog in 1980 and you put the card in the mail and someone called you up, there's a person who says, I can't understand your handwriting. Like, there's always been people, and the internet kind of took that away. And I think that a lot of the reasons why video is growing so dramatically is because it just brings it right back.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think all of those. What's happening to the platform? So, I mean, I'm going to put my hands up here, and hopefully you won't shoot me. We did when I first got involved in BoS. We were using Vimeo for a bunch of
Yeah.
and stuff, and we were using something else that I can't even remember now. It was so awful, but it began with V, I think.
With a V?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Vimeo though. I'll find out. But anyway, we made an okay decision, which was put Vimeo at the core because it was the best of the two things. I think we're looking at that, and I'm going to introduce a colleague of mine in a minute, Joe Glover, who one of the things that he said in his first interview was that he wanted to move from Vimeo to Wistia. But he did actually sort of balance that out by saying that he thought we should be on YouTube as well. So I don't know. I think he was going pretty wide on that. It's really hard as a marketer to know whether you should be hosting. I mean, just if you look at business software over the years, we've had to move a video host at one point because they changed their business model. We've got a lot of stuff that's uploaded. We've got a lot of links. We've got a lot of stuff invested in content where maybe not completely typical. But actually, it's less portable, that bit, than it should be. What should people do if they're starting out? What's the sort of thing that you should be thinking about when you think about video content, video marketing, and because it's
hard, yeah.
It's so hard to know what's going on, and we made a bad decision in the past in terms of a platform that changed its model, and all of a sudden they gave us 2 weeks and said get off.
Yeah. So let's see, a couple things. One, I think your experience is not that rare. Like there's a lot of people have had poor experiences with platforms. And it is hard to go back and change where all your videos are. So I think it's important to ask the questions up front, which is what you're saying, basically, like what are the questions you should ask up front, but to ask the right questions up front to make sure that you're investing in things the right way.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would say is I think the most important thing you can do is ask okay, there's video content, but it's similar to photos, right? Like what photo solution should I use? Should I only use Flickr for all of my photos on my website? I will directly embed them, and that's what I'll do. You can, when you start to ask the question, I think it comes down to goals. And so, if your goal is and where in the funnel you're talking. So the higher up you are in the funnel, the more different options you're going to. YouTube is really good for search. People who are looking for how-to videos and brand-focused content. And they also have a community aspect, right? So people are going to ask questions, and also they have, because of the community aspect, there's related videos, and there's playlists, and there's all these different things. So if you have content, what I always say to people is if you have content that's really brand focused, or content where you don't really care if people are coming back to your website, YouTube is a great thing for that.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think 70% of Wistia customers, which I'll get to in a second, but 70% of Wistia customers use YouTube. So what Joe is suggesting makes sense because you're going to put different content at different places, right? Then the content that a platform like Wistia makes more sense for is content where you're trying to drive the traffic to your website, and you have specific goals for the content that are not just awareness. So if the goal for the content is get email addresses, improve the conversion on a particular page, make people feel something at some part of the funnel so that they refer friends or create word of mouth or whatever that stuff is, the kind of analytics that you're going to want and the tools you're going to want are different for on-site video than for brand-focused video. And so that's where something like Wistia makes sense. Vimeo is also a great platform. I think if you look at where they've been focused on for a long time, it's been with creative people and with video production companies that care about quality. And some of the things they've done recently are pretty interesting, which are allowing you to sell access to content, specifically, one video at a time. And rent a video on Vimeo, and then log in on your Apple TV or your Roku and watch that same video. So they're it seems like they're moving more towards like, if your business is content and you sell access to that content, you should consider Vimeo if you want people like watching this on a TV. If your business is content, you want to make money with ads, like I think YouTube is something that is good to be considering. And the way that a lot of the YouTube algorithms work is that they look at time viewed of other videos after someone watches your video. So if you have a video and everybody leaves and goes back to your website, YouTube can't serve more ads on that, which is how their business model works. And so they actually don't like those videos as much as videos where people watch it, they see a pre-roll ad, they watch another video, they see another. So it's almost like that's why we see these like funny, viral, almost like I like to call it like the America's Funniest Home Videos thing, right? Like that's what a lot of the stuff we see there is. And you keep watching and they keep serving ads, and so that makes sense.
Which is why it keeps coming to the top and keeps appearing. Maybe this is a good time to bring Joe in. Joe, I think it looks like your microphone's off. Joe?
Hello.
It's on.
It's on. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Chris.
Oh, is he in a French fishing village?
I am, yeah. Yeah. It's just me. I'm very lonely, but I'm embracing local culture, though. So.
Well, with his Gallic top, what are the objectives for our website and our video and content?
So
this is. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah. So hello everybody. Hello, Will. I'm Joe. I'm new at BoS. So I'm the new marketing guy. I'm the new Hermione. Slightly more facial hair and a slightly deeper voice, I like to think. And hope. So I've sort of taken over, let's say, the marketing. Our main goal has really transferred to building our mailing list, because this is sort of where we sort of see where most of our audience engages. It's where we sort of see the most sort of instant feedback from what we're doing. So we send out an email and we'll immediately sort of get stuff back. I hope I'm not giving the game away too much, Mark. So at the moment I'm blogging about this.
No, not at all.
Starting a blogging series, and as Mark alluded to at the beginning, I sort of looked at Wistia and sort of figured that it might be quite a decent solution for what we're trying to do because of the turnstile feature that it offers, in contrast to the Vimeo platform that we use currently.
Yeah. So basically the goal being like, you guys want to grow your email list, take advantage of the content you already have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got about 250 videos.
And what was that, Mark?
So
no, just to be clear, I mean, the videos that we have typically are long videos. So, if you've got an hour, there's a certain person that will watch it. They're not kind of YouTube-friendly videos from that perspective, because those people will probably not want to then watch a pre-roll. And but actually, are there ways that we could chop that stuff up, make it shorter? I don't know. I mean, so we were sort of brainstorming a few ideas, but.
I mean, my suggestion on something like this is, make the hub of this content your site, right? Like, you already have a brand that people know. You have the conference that people respect. Like, make the hub of this content your site. Then once the content's there, I would suggest, using something like Turnstile to capture email addresses. Basically, all that's going to do is you can put it at the beginning. You can put it after a couple minutes of a talk so that you're only engaging. Like, you can let people be hooked by the first 5 minutes, and then say, like, if you want to keep watching, put in your email address or whatever. We find that to be very effective because it's kind of similar to the decision when you decide to watch something on like Netflix, right? Like, you are actively choosing to watch it, and if you're actively choosing to watch a talk on BoS's website, I think like you're way more likely to feel like, well, I could spend $2,000 for the ticket and the flight and the time and all this stuff to go to the conference, or I could just sit here and watch these talks. Like, I value my time, I don't have the money or whatever. Like, but I'll get on the list in case in the future like I can afford to go. And I don't want to miss future talks. I think that's another thing that you can do is say like, oh, this new talk's out, take a look, it's really awesome, whatever. I would suggest taking some of the clips that you think are shorter and that you could drive people back to your website from and put those onto YouTube. And the nice thing there is if you have like a 2-minute highlight or a 3-minute highlight from a talk and people enjoy it, it's technically the way to do it is you have to pay to put an ad on your own video, but you can pay to put an ad on your own video on YouTube. That is how you can get a link that's going to like come direct traffic back to your site. And then you can direct traffic back. So the idea is people will hopefully find it. If they engage with the short clip, you push them back to your site. If they're engaging with the longer form content, you're getting an email address. You create a little funnel. And then what you do is when you have people on the email list and you're sending out new content, I always try to say like send out content, content that people are going to share. They're going to share the link that they got, right? Like if it's great content, they're going to share wherever it is. So they'll send out the talks from your site and you get to skip that first part of the funnel. It's just getting people deeper into the funnel, basically.
Yeah.
For sure, agreed. So one of the interesting things there was I was reading about this the other day that because YouTube's SEO is so good, that if you put your video up on YouTube and then someone say searches for say for example Chris Savage 3 mistakes that I learned from, they're more likely to get sent to the YouTube page versus your homepage. Obviously, I mean, you can counteract this with the advert that you said just now, but if you sort of getting people engaging with your content on the YouTube page, do you necessarily see a lot of people then following it up with linking through, or would you say that potentially those people that aren't following it up aren't high enough quality anyway?
Well, that's a really good question because I think that a lot of people see exactly the point you just made, like, oh, this stuff's going to rank really well on YouTube, so don't I want it to rank well? Well, the issue is if you could get it to rank really well on your own website in the first place, can you just skip that part of the funnel? The answer is some people can do that and some people can't. Like if the strength of your website is already pretty good, if things are well indexed, and you have like quality links coming back to you and all that stuff, you can have people go straight to your site all the time. Obviously, like we see this happen. I think the people who have been the most successful that I've seen, they kind of think about like what's the primary thing that someone's going to look for. So let's say someone's going to look for Chris Savage 3 mistakes because that's like the title of the talk that people are talking about. You give that title and that description onto your website. There's other things you can do, by the way, that help if it's a video that help with the SEO on your site. We have some stuff at Wistia that helps with this, but the basics are you actually want to do what YouTube is doing automatically yourself. So that's create a transcript or captions because the search engines can't see into the video to know what it's about, but they can see captions, they can see a transcript. If you have a long form content with like a caption, that's a huge amount of information that's on your site. You can create what's called a video sitemap, which tells Google, like the Google search engine, what the content's about and why it's important. It also matters how big the video is embedded on the page and where on the page it is. So the more the page is video-centric, the more likely it is for Google to think someone's looking for a video, and the more likely they are to send that traffic to you. So if a video is huge at the top, that actually performs better than videos that are smaller, like lower down the page. There's a bunch of other things that you can do. There's these things called open graph tags that is something that Facebook, I believe, originally came up with that helps identify what types of content are there. So if you do all this stuff and you put it on your site, you can actually get it to rank just as high or higher, but you have to do the work, right? Like Google's treating you, even though YouTube is owned by Google, supposedly they're not doing anything special to send traffic there. What they are doing is they are doing all the right things automatically for every video, and that's making more stuff show up. So, but it is a decision. You should decide, like, would you prefer for traffic to go directly to your website or not? And you can change titles and descriptions and stuff like for YouTube as another thing you can do.
Okay, cool. Well, that's solid advice, and that almost seems like the ABCs of getting people to your website to view your video content. So that's really useful.
Cool.
So, I mean, you mentioned earlier that there was sort of like this movement towards people, sort of a democratization, I guess, of video content through social media. You know, sort of people regaining the ability to look after their own brands, sort of put out what they want to be on telly. Do you reckon that there's sort of going to be a movement as people, an evolution, say, from sort of people taking back this power to people needing agencies once again to sort of stand out?
Yes. I think it's similar to design. So I think that's like the most analogous thing. So the quality of design that you need to get in the door and have people like take you seriously has gone up a lot, right? Like I think that, you know, when people start talking about Web 2.0 as a thing, which we don't really talk about anymore because it's like, you know, 5 years later. But when people really started first talking about that, it was like, you need to have shit that looks good because if you don't, no one's going to respect you, which is kind of true. And then now, you know, some of the best is not just doing stuff internally. They are going back and getting agencies to help them. But I think it's a balance because I think that even if you have outside help to help you stand out, you're not going to do that for all of the content, right? Like, so a fundamental difference is when you outsource the design of your website, it becomes hard to change the website. It becomes hard to tweak it. Like every landing page is painful, yada, yada, yada. When you have people internally, you can make everything look really good. You can make every long tail page look amazing. You can make the shirts that you're sending out look amazing. You can have other ideas come up that you wouldn't have when you have someone internally. But you might still say, you know, for this major ad campaign we're going to do, we're going to work with an outside firm, and they're going to help us. So I actually think what happens is I don't think you shift all the way back. I think you do both.
Right. And that makes sense. Because I guess there's sort of something to be said as well, because it probably works on a bit of a scale that, you know, you got sort of like the local ads, you know, and the guys like recording with a video camera and something quite nice about that versus something quite professional, such as what you've got on your website. Actually, you know, it sort of still retains like the homeliness of it, even while still being professional. So maybe I'm stitching Mark up here, but maybe that's something we'll have to look more towards in the future.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that I would just leave you with on that piece is like the authenticity trumps professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so if you can make really great content, but it's authentic, that's probably better than perfect content that isn't.
For sure. No, I definitely agree. And I guess that would be one of your interesting problems coming up with the culture thing as well. When you're talking about engaging the culture and making sure that's maintained.
Exactly.
Do you think your platform sort of defined by the culture of Wistia up to now?
It definitely is extremely heavily influenced. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in our product that I think, you know, there's like one thing I always think about, which is like if you're sorting some of the stats, it says like you can sort by number of plays, you can sort by engagement, some other things. And if you click on it, instead of there being an arrow, the word plays like flips upside down. And it's this thing that the first time you see it, you're like, that's kind of funny. Like, why is that in there? It's in there because someone was like, this is a really fun idea, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, so I'm going to push really hard for this to be the product. And I think that there's lots of stuff like that you can tell that like we actually genuinely enjoyed the creation process. And so I think it is very deeply embedded. And I mean, our marketing and how we present ourselves to the world, our culture comes through quite a bit, which definitely forces us to hold ourselves accountable. That like, if we're not prioritizing the culture and working on it and nurturing it, like we're pretty screwed. so definitely influenced by it. Very important. Yes.
Cool. So, Chris, can you hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
there's more and more video content coming out. There's going to be more and more stuff professionally done. I get more and more people offering me guaranteed hilarious viral videos, production services. I'm bombarded by it all over the place. Presumably that's going on because more and more companies are producing crappy, turgid corporate shit and trying to get it out through more and more platforms. Maybe
Yes.
I'm being a bit cynical. How do we make sure that? Well, two things. I mean, I think that authenticity trumps professionalism. I think for a lot of the stuff that we're thinking about, we'd like to think that it stands on its own two legs anyway. But if you have got great content, what's the thing that kind of pushes you and makes you more visible as opposed to the sort of 99% of yada 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 corporate, we love our people?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I mean, I think one, just to kind of go back through the order that you presented it, I think that when people are reaching out and they're saying, like, we're going to make a really funny, really viral thing, and that's going to be how we stand out. Like, the second that someone has a formula, the formula stops working, right? Like, I think that's definitely true. I think that the way to stand out is actually to get a group of people who care about the same thing to help, like, project the message farther out, right? So, like, for BoS as an example, the people who are coming actually care about building a real business. I think every conversation I had with people there, they felt lucky to be there because either their business was far enough along that they could afford to go, or they had learned so much in the past that it changed how they think, or they came in as a startup and they said, wow, it's a breath of fresh air to be talking to lots of different people who just care so much about this.
Yeah.
And I think leveraging that group of people who care about the same thing, the group benefits when there's more people who care about that thing, right? Like, I think that's what you have to think about. Is like, how do you get the group to benefit when there are more people who care? And it's better information, it's better data, it's better speakers, it's more learning.
Yeah.
It's more people to say that you're not crazy, right? Like, I think we make sense at BoS, and partially because, like, we haven't raised a ton of money and built, like, an insane, like, fake company.
Sure.
But that's it's more I don't know. I think that's probably a little bit, that story's not told as much. I'll say that. And we think about that a lot. So, like, how do we get people together who care about making authentic content, who care about humanizing their businesses, who don't just want, like, a shortcut? And that group benefits when there's more people thinking about this. And part of the reason they benefit is because the reality is that most of us don't have that much competition. Like, we can really learn from each other. There's a company that's a Wistia customer. They're called Mixer Direct, and they make industrial mixers. So if you're a beer brewery and you need, like, a 2,000-gallon tank or whatever to, like, mix your, like, malt, go to Mixer Direct. You can find this thing. If you go look, this sounds like something. I mean, it sounds kind of cool, like industrial mixers. It doesn't sound something I would spend any time learning about or thinking about. But if you go to their website and you look at the content they make, it is incredible, and it feels super cool. And they will, like, take a GoPro and throw it inside a mixer and turn that thing on. They'll have, like, stories with people who are building the mixers. They'll have stories with other people who at other breweries that are using this stuff, and you feel this different level of, like, connection to the business. And they're a great example of a company and a group of people that I think, like, there's so many other people that can learn from them, and by telling their story, it tells a Wistia story better. And, like, there's lots of those stories. So we try to think about what are those stories and how can we connect the community together so that they can learn and be inspired. Because the reality is, like, even you asking these questions, like, it seems like videos everywhere, but, like, what % of businesses in the US have a website? I think it's something shockingly low, like 70%. I can't remember what the number is, but it's like like there's so many companies that haven't even gotten there yet. And so if you think about the ones that are using video really well and using email really well, and it's actually this tiny speck of the market, And there's just a long way to go. So I think that we're already, the way that you're really going to stand in front is like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you've been doing this, you become an expert at it. People look at you and are like, oh my God, how'd they do that?
Yeah, yeah. So it's mixerdirect.com. It's sort of a bit like is it the B2B version of Will It Blend?
Sure.
Have you
Yeah.
seen
I mean,
Will It Blend?
I have seen that. I didn't think about it like that. It's they don't have a crazy guy in a lab coat, but it just is like they've taken something, and by focusing on the right types of content, they made it very, very cool and approachable and easy to talk about.
Yeah. Cool, cool. We'll take a look at that. Who else is doing sort of interesting stuff that just makes you think, yeah, people should be? I mean, who are your customers? I mean, who are the other customers that are doing, just changing the way this is going to work?
I mean, I think there's some examples you can see of people who have like adopted different elements of this like earlier. One example I'd point out is another BoSer, but Moz. And if you look at what they've done with Whiteboard Fridays, so Moz is a company that helps you, analyze and do better inbound marketing.
Yeah.
They have something every Friday where someone gets on camera. Usually it's Rand, who's their founder, talking about and like teaching to this same audience about like on camera in front of a whiteboard. It sounds really simple. They've been doing it for like 5 years at this point. There's always like a huge number of comments, a huge number of views. It's all traffic on their website, and it's like directly engaging with their community. So I think that's like a really good example of company that's doing this really well. Another company I think about is a company called Litmus, litmus.com. And
they're another BoSer, you see.
They're another BoSer. They do like help email designers figure out how to do QA on their emails, make their emails better, and analytics on their emails. They have email builders, all this different type of stuff. And they have somebody who is, I believe, half-time at this point, making content for them. And so every month they put out a video that's the email market share report. And Justine, who's on their marketing team, will walk through like what's changing, how many people are opening emails on like in Gmail, on the web, like on their iPhone. How should you think about your designs? How should you think about like your calls to action because of this? And so they found something that actually is really easy to continue to do that's exactly for their core audience. And their content has gotten a lot better over time, I think, because they're making stuff in-house.
Interesting. Interesting. Cool.
Just
Litmus are based over here, aren't they? I think
they're actually they started in England, and they also have an office in Cambridge, Mass.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Joe, have you got any last-minute requests while you've got the emperor of video marketing on a Hangout to?
Well, this might be like the worst question in the world, and it's very open. So, but what works with video? What sticks?
Okay. Let's see. What's the shortest? So I think the thing that I would say is when you start making videos, you guys already have a ton of content. But if someone's just starting making videos seem really hard and they seem really scary, and they are scary to get on camera. It's scary to get on camera. It's scary to present a story like where someone's walking through in a particular way and they can't scan through like text. Like there's a lot of things that make video really scary. I would just encourage people that the more that your videos can be focused and have one goal, the easier it's going to be for them to be successful. And it's one of those things where it feels like you should just cram like 10 goals together, and because it's kind of like we're redesigning the front page of our website, and everyone's like, ooh, the pricing page should be fixed. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, actually, we should have different pricing. And also, like, we need customer stories, and also we need this other thing. And it's like, whoa, like, just because we're designing the front page, you want to do all these other things? That same thing happens with video all the time. So that's the first thing. I would say the second thing is when you're thinking about the length of the content, the less that somebody knows your business, the less likely they're going to be to watch long-form content, and the more that you should make your content focused and shorter. So it's kind of an inverse correlation to how well they know you. If they don't know you very well, make it really short. Try to show them that you can make great content and that there's like a point to it. And that if they know you really well, if they've been a customer for a long time, or like if you've been to business of software before and you know the talks, you're probably way more likely to watch that thing all the way through and way more likely to put in your email address to share with other people because you have a deep connection already to the brand.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how. Those are the two things I would think about.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense, really. And when you were talking about sort of clipping the content down, you imagine sort of you're scrolling through your Facebook page, and of course they're looking to integrate video a lot more into their service, so that will become more and more relevant, I guess. So yeah, that length of content in particular really resonates with me. So
it's like, why do we love animated GIFs, right?
Yeah.
Because they're super focused and really short, and we have no connection to them whatsoever. If they were like all like 5 minutes long, none of them would be shared. But they're they're like 3 seconds. They're like, ooh, you know, it's just like
punctuation marks of the kind of
exactly.
world, aren't they?
Yeah.
No, they're great. Cool. Okay. Look, Chris, really appreciate your time. Is there anything that we can do for you? And what are you doing internationally these days?
What are we doing internationally? Good question. You mean like just from a customer?
You presumably got customers around the world, but being American, you'll all be based in the US, and don't wonder why people phone up at 3 o'clock in the morning or something.
Are you trying to tell me
orange?
The Wistia office right now, the Cambridge Wistia office? Yeah. What can you do to help? This is helpful. Spread the good word. Like, ask questions. That's all awesome. Yeah, international is an interesting topic in and of itself, which we could probably spend an hour on. But my 30-second version is, like, I think 25% of our customers every month, our new customers, are international. So it's a pretty good amount, and we're thinking about how to make that experience a lot better. And particularly around like support and making sure that the hours are more aligned and stuff like that. So those are things we're thinking about right now. We haven't solved all those problems yet, but it's something that we have to solve soon.
Is everything? I mean, everything you're doing is really in sort of US time zones. You don't outsource any of your support, or it's all in house, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
That's, interesting times.
Yes, there's a lot of challenges ahead.
Wow. Okay. No, and I think the internationalization piece is something that we always kind of look for people to talk about. I think there is that. And I mean, even for some quite substantial, US or European companies, you get to that point where you start to go global, and things are very different for lots of reasons. So maybe that's one that we should be following up on. And you're still you're sort of doing a bit of mentoring and kind of seeing the next generation of kind of Boston startups coming through, aren't you? What's happening over there? I know you saw Jonathan actually the other day.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend. So, and he was very grateful for some time.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening in Boston right now. There's a lot of new stuff. I mean, honestly, I wish I had more time to be more involved than I am. I think that's like someone said to me once, like, you can tell how in control someone is and like how on top of their shit they are by how much they're writing on their personal blog, like if you have a personal blog. And so like I have not written on my personal blog in a long time. And this person commented to me recently, is like, I'm gonna guess that there's a lot of stressful, hard things you're dealing with most of these days, right? And I'm like, yeah. So I think I wish I had more time to do it more. But it's hard. I think the hard thing is that, like, was certainly true with us, but like at the earliest stages, it's pretty hard to pick apart like what is going to work and what's like where my experience can be relevant and what isn't. And I think like if you'd seen Wistia when we were 2 people working out of a bedroom, everyone would be like, you know, I don't think it's worth my time. So I think that's one of the hard things. But yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, look forward to seeing you in Boston in September. I was just thinking, actually, maybe we should, you know, we have half-day workshops at the end of the last day in business software. I wonder whether there's something that you could do for people, and I'll see if there's a demand for it. But do you think there would be a sort of using video in marketing thing that people could pick up in half a day and be useful?
I think so, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a poke about that
All right.
offline. But
Cool.
hey, really great to see you, and thanks so much for all of your input. It sounds like we've got some work to do at this end as well before we can come back and talk to you again. But oh, sorry, he has.
Thanks for having me. It's been super fun. It's always good to chat with you, Mark, and nice to meet you, Joe. And yeah, let me know how I can be helpful too.
Awesome. Thanks so much. You take care. Cheers, Chris.
All right. See ya.